Once we've completed our market analysis and we've got a good sense of, hey, what's the opportunity here? We're buying it at 50% occupancy. How long is it going to take us to get to 100% occupancy? We can take a much deeper dive and do some of the thorough due diligence that exists. And this is going to happen after we're in escrow, the property is under contract, we control the deal. Now we're going to start really spending some money and some time to really get a thorough understanding of what we've got our hands on. We're going to be engaging a lender by this point. And a lot of the things that we do here, specifically the third-party reports, are going to be driven by the lender. So they'll say things like, hey, obviously we're going to get an appraisal done. A lender's going to want to see some environmental reports get done, and then probably a PCA, a property condition assessment. And so generally what I'm going to do is, after a desktop analysis, go visit the property. We're going to take a look around it. There's a feel that you can get being on site, seeing the building, walking it, talking to the tenants, seeing the car count, seeing the traffic patterns. We can see a lot of that now on a desktop analysis from Google, but surely nothing beats being able to physically go down to a site. So anytime we're moving forward on a multi-million-dollar deal, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna touch it, I'm gonna see it myself before we decide to move forward. Part of that is always gonna be meeting with the tenants to do tenant interviews. And so we're asking them things like, how's their business doing? Would you want to renew a lease if you were gonna stay here? Do you wanna renew early? Are you gonna be here for 5 years? Do you wanna do a 7-year deal? Do you need more space? Do you need less space? There might be an opportunity to expand an existing tenant who's already in there that has been just growing and thriving. Some tenants might want to take a smaller footprint to cut down on their costs. And all these things allow us to go into a deal knowing, hey, what are some of the options that we have to move space around, to rejigger it, to make sure that we can maximize the income of the building and the rent roll as best as possible. Also gives us a great sense to see, how are our tenants doing? If our tenants are doing well, they're able to pay the rent, that means that we have a great opportunity for the building to do really well. I'm talking to tenants about how their sales are. We want to see what their sales to rent ratio looks like. And it just gives them an opportunity to kind of air out their dirty laundry before we're committed to doing a deal. Also can arm us with some great ammo to go back to our seller or the bank or the special servicer and say, hey, there's been some concerns here by the tenants raised about homelessness or whatever it is that's going on, or the trash isn't getting picked up frequently enough, or they want to see a new parking lot, or they don't have enough signage. And it's like, wow, they're giving us the playbook to go fix these problems so that we can attract even more tenants to the center. So this is a fun thing to do, and it really allows us to reverse engineer what our solutions are going to look like for the building. Once we've done our tenant interviews, we're going to move forward and order a property condition report, a PCA, or a property condition assessment. And so this is done by a third party. Recently, we did one with CBRE, and so they generated a 70-page report that's looking at everything in the building. Think, home inspection, but done on a much more robust and thorough basis. They spend, in many cases, a day or two out at the property, walking, everything about it. And they'll put a forecast together that says, hey, expect to spend this much money in the next 5 or 10 years on the roof, on the HVAC, on, kind of the major systems of the building. We noticed this, we noticed that. This is a great tool for us to be able to go back to our seller and again, ask for a credit or a discount on the property. We may be able to uncover some things that they didn't share when we initially offered on the building and say, hey, it's not that we're not willing to move forward, but now that we know we're going to spend $70,000 on the roof, we're going to adjust the price accordingly. Usually I'm going to jump up on top of the roof. We're going to take a look at the roof itself because that tends to be one of the big ticket items. We're also going to look at the HVAC, which can range from $6,000 to $7,000, $8,000 per unit. Oftentimes in a triple net lease, the HVAC is going to be covered by the tenant, but have they been maintaining it? And so this can be one of those things where even though it's the tenant's responsibility, they don't always maintain it. And so really understanding what we're getting into and making sure that the tenants are in a position to pay for that is going to be an important thing, or something that we, again, retrade the deal on based on what we find up there. So I'm here walking the property with a roof expert. I want to get out there with an HVAC expert and really, make sure we've got a second and a third set of opinions on what's the useful life of each of those major components of the property. All right, finally, pretty much every lender is going to require we do an environmental study or a phase 1 on the building. So they're going to make sure we don't have any dirty dirt underlying it, that there's no Indian burial grounds. That's kind of a box that we check. If we do find something, we can do do remediation. That's another great way to get a further price reduction. But now we know that we don't have any major environmental concerns or issues before we move forward on the deal. And so those are, not every single thing, but some of the major key points during due diligence that we're going to look at. Finally, we're going to do basically forensic accounting and go through the rent roll, go through the operating statements, the general ledger, the profit and loss. Usually we can get 2 or 3 years worth of income sheets and balance statements to cross-reference, what might be put together by the brokers and say, hey, these numbers are actually adding up. Because we're buying this based on current performance, with the intent to be able to significantly increase the net operating income of the building.